What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. Not too long ago, I released part 11 of 5 things we want in the Elder Scrolls 6, a series that covers some of the coolest desires for the next Elder Scrolls title and can be watched in any order. However, the backbone that keeps this series going is not me, it is all of you, and your capacity to deliver the best Elder Scrolls threats possible. Last time, I told you guys to step things up a notch and get more creative with your words of encouragement, and you absolutely delivered this time. Andrew Novak's warning is enough to rival even the most heinous of nightmarish illusions delivered to the sleeping victims of Vaymina's influence. Part 12 of the Elder Scrolls 6 will release exactly how you want it. You will spend over 1,000 hours playing it, having the time of your life and never wanting it to end, until you suddenly wake up from Vaymina's dream to find yourself in the back of a horse-drawn cart going to Helgen. But it seems she's not the only Daedric prince who has been communing with FudgeMuppet fans as of late. Local Dingus revealed, "I've been in contact with Sheogorath, and he's agreed that if you don't make a part 12, he'll bind your consciousness to a roll of toilet paper and place you in a Taco Bell bathroom." Perhaps that is the real story behind what happened to Trinomac when he was turned into Malakath by Boethia. Then Mr. McMumbles comes in with a horrific idea which I wouldn't dare even mention to Scott. He says, "Okay, hit him where it hurts. Part 12, or all lore relating to the Dunmer, Morrowind, and all the culture therein will be retconned. The Dunmer are now just uninteresting, shorter, darker-skinned Ultima." What a curse that would be. Such creative coercion has impressed me greatly and led to the creation of Part 12, with 5 more ideas for things we want in the Elder Scrolls 6. As always, do your best to inspire me to make a Part 13 in the comments below, and if you enjoy content like this, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification button if you haven't already. The first thing on this list is actually to provide some unique options for when you die, and I'm saying die with finger quotes. Death in an Elder Scrolls game simply means you load back to your most recent save game and try again. There's nothing wrong with this, and I'm not looking to give it some massive overhaul. However, I think it would be pretty cool if there were some uncommon and rare circumstances where defeat led to a more interesting outcome than death. For example, imagine if a Khajiit bandit came to you in the middle of the wilderness demanding you pay him 200 septums. As you were traveling from one town to the next, he was hiding out on a rocky hill with a view of a group of mountain lions who notoriously attack any travelers using the same road as you. You just defeated those beasts, losing a third of your health in the process, and now he's in your face demanding you pay up. You decline and he attacks. It turns out this highwayman was far tougher than you expected, kitted out with not only some nice armor but also many healing potions. It's not long before you realize that his elven greatsword actually has a gnarly shock damage enchantment on it too. You try your best to defeat him, but he bests you today. Upon hitting 0 health, you fall to the ground in a downed state, after which he drives a kick to the side of your head and the screen fades to black. You awaken to realize you've been robbed. You could remain alone, or another variation could have you wake up to a group of traveling merchants who have found you and give you a basic health potion before helping you to your feet. Turns out the highwayman has taken a bunch of your most precious gear. Light items that are easy to carry like rare gemstones and jewelry are almost all gone. He even took a few pieces of your enchanted Daedric armor he wouldn't find anywhere else, and 2,000 septums. You can't blame him for his choice. He chose some of the most valuable items he could carry and left with them, but that is not the end of the story here. I don't just want players to be punished and lose their items. I don't think that's very fun at all, and I can imagine almost everyone would just load back to an old save if that was the case. Instead, we think it would be really cool if after being downed and then robbed, you actually received an objective to go and track down this bandit, slay them, and take your items back. This Khajiit could be hiding out in a randomly selected fort or cavern alongside other bandits who are there, and with his new gear and tale of his victory over you, he may even be respected as a kind of chief or leader. You really suffered losing all of your gear, but instead of the story of you versus this bandit coming to an end, it simply continues down a new path. Eager to recover your gear and spend some time planning for the battle ahead, you brew new potions and poisons, exploring the alchemy skill, which may be something you haven't tried yet. You go loot some new weapons and armor, or buy resources and smith more of your own, and perhaps you even hire a cool mercenary companion for 500 gold that you haven't talked to yet. He may turn out as a fun character you'll keep with you, you. This all creates some new experiences you may have otherwise missed out on or not tried at this point in your playthrough. Ultimately, you storm the bandit hideout, slaying all in your path including the highwayman who robbed you previously, and take back all the gear he stole. Maybe some things are missing like a bunch of the gemstones, but in their place is more gold, indicating he sold them. We would definitely want you to be able to recover the same gear you lost if it was unique, particularly if it was weaponry or armor, an enchanted ring or necklace, or some special artifact. Speaking of which, it would also be cool if they were using some of your strongest gear against you. The bandit could be wearing your Daedric armor pieces, or maybe even the Mask of Clavicus Vial if they stole something like that from you. They'd be able to tell there's something very unique and special about any Daedric artifacts when they searched you. I also think that it could be cool if a group of bandits working together attacking you could actually rob more of your gear if there's more left alive when you're downed. So in that case, if a group of 5 ambush you and you only defeat 2 of them, then 3 of them will be carrying your gear off to their hideout together. If only 1 remains, then the least amount of gear is stolen. You get the idea. Perhaps the amount of gear I mentioned for 1 bandit could be what would usually be split among 3, for example. Now of course some people will just load back to the save from before they were knocked out and robbed, and if you want to do that, I don't see an issue with it. It's your single player game experience and you can do whatever you like in it. However, with unique outcomes stemming from being defeated, the player's story can evolve in a new way. Fail states that simply end are quite boring in my opinion and don't add a lot to the role-playing experience versus having a character arc where you're bested, robbed, and then prepare for battle, track down your adversary and defeat them, reclaiming what is yours. Evolving paths like this in role-playing games are really cool. Bethesda loves to focus on this whole idea of be who you want and craft your own story, and I think this feature would promote a more individualized experience, more replayability, and help to make each playthrough more unique. Another example of something happening to you in defeat could be being captured by one of the various vampire clans that inhabit the province, of which there are many interesting options if Elder Scrolls 6 is set in High Rock, Hammerfell, or both. Imagine you're bested and drop down to one knee, and the vampire casts some sort of vampiric paralysis spell on you, making you collapse face down. You awaken in a large cage wearing wraps, and quickly realize you've been made one of their cattle. There's another NPC in the cage with you labeled as Vampire Cattle, perhaps with the clan name in his title, so Vreseth Vampire Cattle for example, and the cage is locked. You may have one lockpick to attempt a stealthy escape, or simply select the bed to wait. Perhaps you could select from wait to be rescued, which similarly to jail would see you lose skill progress, or wait for feeding. Selecting the latter, a vampire comes and opens the cage door to feed. You can use magic but are otherwise unarmed. You must then begin to attack and escape. Doing nothing would see them feed on you and leave, though this may provide an opportunity for pickpocketing a key as they turn to exit the cage. Of course, you could reclaim your gear from a nearby chest, just like a jailbreak, and you may even get infected with the early stages of a vampiric disease. You could choose to allow yourself to become a proper vampire in 3 days, or go get cured at a shrine or by drinking a cure disease potion. Either way, it provides a fun role-playing opportunity for your character. Was it the time you got kidnapped by vampires only to escape without them even noticing, or was it a blessing in disguise, giving you the power to ascend to an immortal form where you embrace your new powers? A similar setup could occur with being kidnapped and caged by bandits to be sold for ransom, which could be particularly interesting if it was a consequence for having either high fame in an area, if a reputation system featured in Elder Scrolls 6, or even if you had a bounty on you and the bandits actually try to sell you to the local city. Waiting in the bed in your cage here would see you transported to the local jail, or if it's due to fame would see them paid off for your release if you wait enough, causing loss of skill progression. As always, the best option would be an attempt to escape. Some sort of slaver group could also capture you and put you to work in a mine if it's lore-friendly and makes sense. As a side idea, this kind of stuff could also help to incentivize some sort of banking system where you store septums and items you don't need. You can't be robbed of what's not in your possession, can you? Overall, I would love to see some new options that take us beyond reloading a save and help in adding unique role-playing development for the character we're playing. And to emphasize again, this doesn't have to be something that happens often at all. It could simply be a rare experience to embrace if you so choose. The second thing on this list is attributes. Firstly, I will say that Elder Scrolls 6 can still be a great game by fleshing out character customization and role-playing without the return of attributes, but we think they're better off added back in, improved and overhauled of course, than left left out entirely. Attributes were a part of character customization in every Elder Scrolls game before Skyrim, including Daggerfall and Arena, and what they did was help to diversify and govern various aspects of your build. They provided more opportunities for how your character plays, both mechanically, in the form of better stats or changing things like movement speed, and also for role-playing, so you could really feel like your character was strong or tough or lucky without relying entirely on their underlying skill set. The attributes were strength, intelligence, willpower, agility, speed, endurance, personality, and luck. Throughout each title, what all of these attributes did actually changed, but generally speaking, we could say that strength tended to increase carry weight and buffed up melee damage in combination with your weapon skill, intelligence boosted your total magicka capabilities, and willpower increased maximum stamina, or fatigue as it was called, and governed magicka regeneration. Agility did things like determine your jump height, speed made you faster, endurance toughened you up, and personality made you more charming and helped with speech and bartering. Luck could also help with all sorts of niche things, such as your chance to win bets, to break a lockpick on auto attempts, or just be successful anytime a dice roll chance factor is involved. The system has always been fun, but there's plenty of flaws to fix and enhancements to make so that role-playing is far more in-depth and enjoyable, but also so people do not feel restricted or weighed down by complexity. Oblivion changed how much you can add to attributes depending on skill use between levels, and we think this is best removed and replaced with a flat bonus to allocate as you level, similarly to how we already can allocate a flat amount of points to health, magicka, or stamina in the Elder Scrolls V. Attributes are also far more exciting than these small stat changes, and potentially adding boring boosts to base stats could be removed entirely. If you wanted to add to health, you could just add to endurance and enjoy other benefits that come with that attribute. Same goes for intelligence and willpower and their underlying stats, magicka and stamina. But instead of thinking in terms of base stats, you may just want to make your character faster in many ways, and would choose the speed attribute. We'd also need to balance out the attributes so they all feel worth choosing. This helps ensure that there's a larger variety of cool build setups people can make. Where Skyrim just has one-handed and two-handed, attributes added on top would really help to differentiate between a high-speed agile swordsman who likes to dodge, parry, and stab, and a big tanky brute force barbarian who uses their immense strength to tear through enemy lines. We'd of course want perks to remain on top to really help people further flesh out their playstyles in unique ways. Attributes just adds to this as another layer of individuality for your character. It would be awesome to see attributes actually unlock unique privileges automatically that can actually change your playstyle. Imagine if you got your strength to 90, and it gave you the option to dual wield some two-handed weapons if you desired. Suddenly you're swinging around a battle axe in each hand, tearing up the battlefield like some sort of divine berserker. Dual wielding such heavy weapons would definitely lead to slower swinging, and I'd say strength affecting weapon handling in general could be quite interesting. Picking up a heavy warhammer might be a smoother experience with higher strength. Strength could help increase swing speed for weapons above a certain weight, and could actually make power attacks deal more damage, or could make them cost less stamina, because you can unleash the same output with less effort. Blocking with a weapon or shield could be sturdier and make you have less chance to stagger due to high strength. There could also be bits of crossover where multiple attributes can affect the same thing. Both speed and strength could increase swing speed, but perhaps speed increases one-handed swing speed more than two-handed, though still boosts both, and vice versa. This also makes the speed attribute more unique than just a running movement enhancer, and worth considering for any DPS build. Speed could also increase draw speed, or alternatively that could be governed by agility. In addition to enhancing any jump or dodge mechanics, agility could also help with pickpocket chance, though this needs to be balanced so that pickpocket characters can still be talented and successful without having a maxed out agility stat. Attributes should add to your experience, not take away from it for those who don't treat allocation super seriously. Luck could increase your chances of finding good loot, be it a higher chance of finding a gemstone in an urn, or a more valuable enchanted item in a boss chest at the end of a dungeon. Luck would be a great thing to implement for all kinds of small chance-based things. Think of it as putting small modifiers on things like chance to get staggered, chance to stagger an opponent, chance to land a critical hit in combat, or reduce the chance that an enemy lands one on you. Luck could affect any mechanics revolving around a chance to disarm opponents, or even slightly slightly influence enemy AI, perhaps making them more reckless and likely to make a silly mistake, such as walk into their own trap or carelessly throw an area damage spell your way when you're in melee combat with one of their allies. There could be perks that involve attributes too, so long as the tree is designed properly. Imagine a perk somewhere in the one-handed tree that allowed you to parry with a sword in one hand so long as there's nothing in the other. It would rely on timing and be easier to perform the higher your agility stat is. Imagine playing a character with a focus on the light armor skill, and there's a perk off to the side that requires 90 in light armor as well as 85 in the agility stat. It might grant you 15% movement speed, stacking after each successful use of the dodge mechanic to avoid an enemy power attack. Another option could be a unique alchemy perk that allows you to use a specifically made concoction to poison yourself temporarily in order to infect those around you during combat. It might require a high endurance attribute in addition to the alchemy skill required to create it. People also talk about bringing back old skills like acrobatics or Daggerfall's climbing skill, but if Bethesda doesn't think these things deserve a whole perk tree, such activities could be governed by attributes. High agility could let you navigate up walls and across rooftops easier, with 60 in the attribute unlocking unique dodges like those seen in Oblivion, but much smoother of course. Hand-to-hand could also increase in damage with both strength and agility, with unique power attacks available to learn from unique characters in the world, as was seen in Fallout New Vegas. Attributes also benefit from this idea we've shared before about adding speech checks based on skills into Elder Scrolls 6, similar to what Fallout games have done before. Perhaps there's a quest where you need to help a Baron in High Rock to rescue his kidnapped bodyguard, who he needs to transport him through a dangerous area. This bodyguard could be competent, but was simply overwhelmed and captured while traveling on his own. Instead of the rescue, maybe you can use a high endurance level as a speech check to say that time is of the essence and you're tough enough to be his bodyguard right now. This then leads you to actually do the transport mission with the Baron instead of the rescue. A high intelligence score could at some point be used to encourage a battle-hungry commander to approach an upcoming siege differently. He finds your advice to be incredibly useful, and you use it to change the approach of the quest entirely and in your favor. Strength could easily be used to help intimidate or suggest how effective you'd be in a situation where brute force might be a useful option. I also can't see why the personality attribute couldn't lead to some special flirtatious dialogue to have someone reveal information they should have kept secret, and even lead to rare opportunities for, shall we say, amorous activities. Think of the seduction perks seen in Fallout games. Another cool thing about adding attributes back in is that it adds another layer to the enchanting system. Of course, enchanting needs to be rebalanced, but assuming all issues are worked out, imagine how cool things could be. Boots that increase running speed, gauntlets that boost strength, even some sort of special ring or necklace that boosts the wearer's personality so that they are more charming to those they interact with. Of course, we'd want there to be plenty of uniques with effects unable to be replicated, and powerful Daedric artifacts imbued with magic far more potent than anything the player can enchant, but having that ability to fortify or absorb different attributes of enemies you encounter would be really appreciated. Daedric artifact enchantments could also be more unique if they implemented some attribute effects instead of falling back on health, magicka, and stamina, as was the case with Volendrung, for example, in Skyrim. Attributes also provide more of a unique feel at the start of the game when you pick a certain race. Starting as a Khajiit, you may feel much more agile and better at sneaking, or starting as a Redguard, you may notice that you're much tougher and deal more damage with a sword in your hand. And I'm talking beyond just higher skills at the start. So that people don't get forced to pick builds based on their race, we could simply have the option to tag 2 attributes to get a boost when you create your character, so if you want to be an unusually strong Argonian warrior, you can. You just might not be as strong as a Nord who chose Strength 2, at least to start off with. All in all, adding in attributes helps to enhance how unique any character feels and promote replayability as people want to go and play Elder Scrolls 6 again and again, testing different role-playing setups that are not only reflected differently in terms of build mechanics, but also in terms of how your personal adventure unfolds for you. The third thing on this list is a smaller desire, but it's actually an improved damage system. I'm talking about things such as critical hits, bleed damage, and even limb damage. The first two have always been there, but deserve more attention, and limb damage has never featured in an Elder Scrolls game. During the Radical Ideas episode of our Elder Scrolls podcast, Drew was joking around about the idea of having Vats in Elder Scrolls 6. You know, the system in Fallout games that lets you freeze or slow time to target enemy body parts and then unleash a stream of pre-selected attacks. Well, we definitely wouldn't go that far in an Elder Scrolls game, but that's what led us to discuss the concept of limb damage. The whole idea that you'd be able to do things like shoot an approaching bandit in the thigh with an arrow and have him slow down and limp towards you if the damage was significant enough is really cool. It would also add more diversity to what certain weapon types can do. There's already bleeding damage, though only with War Axe and Battle Axe perks, but imagine having big blunt weapons like Warhammers be able to cause more limb damage as one of their advantages by default. Limb damage also makes each piece of armor feel more special. If you don't want to wear gauntlets, that's fine, but then you have to deal with the fact that your arms are more vulnerable. I think this is more interesting than just a straight up armor rating. Why should I have the same full body protection for my bones in a set of smithed up Daedric boots than a full set of iron armor? Players could have their limbs become crippled, though would still be able to heal them with restoration magic or potions. I don't think bandages or doctor's bags are really on brand here, and the vibe we'd be wanting isn't to be limping across the map all alone, but mostly just to be affected during tough battles, but then recover and move past it. Critical damage definitely needs to be fixed. In Skyrim, it used base damage to factor in the extra damage a critical shot added. This means that once you had a really powerful smithed up sword, which was basically essential at high levels, if you landed a critical hit, you might just deal an extra 20 damage or something quite low for late levels. To fix this, critical damage should be based on the actual damage of the weapon itself, and different weapons, such as daggers, could have a higher chance of causing a critical hit, with bigger, blunter weapons doing more limb damage as we talked about. Furthermore, gaining some clarity on what the chances to land critical hits actually are would be sensational. I could easily see it being a combination of raw chance, as well as whether or not you're striking a vulnerable body part, and potentially if attributes returned as we discussed earlier, then your luck level could improve that chance, leading to some really cool builds. Going back to specific body part damage, I think it just feels a little silly when you slash someone directly in the face and it does the same damage as you hitting them on the toe. I'm not asking for a huge amount of damage variance, but I think it should be significant enough to make it noticeable and reward people's precision somewhat, especially for archery. So many times I would just aim for any part of the target when playing the Dark Brotherhood with a stealth archer because I knew that it wouldn't have made a difference where I hit someone. It would be more fun and rewarding to wait and really time your shot to hit them directly in the head or other vulnerable spot. Again, just to be clear, I'm not advocating for hyper-realism where every headshot is an instant kill or something like that, but a little variance would be appreciated. Similar to Fallout creatures having weak spots, it also adds a fun element of understanding where to strike at enemies to hit them where it hurts and win the battle a bit faster. Things like hitting a giant scorpion in the tail while traveling through a desert in Hammerfell, or aiming your bow at the wings of harpies in High Rock. You get the idea. You could also target certain humanoid enemy class types, such as warriors, in the leg or arm before they see you, in an attempt to worsen their swing speed or movement speed before they attempt to best you in battle. I think enemies in general should have more unique vulnerabilities as well as more resistances or full protection from certain damage types. I remember in previous Elder Scrolls games that ghosts and wraiths couldn't actually be hit with normal weapons. You had to use silver weaponry, which wasn't too hard to find, or Daedric, but if you didn't have one of those, you'd have to use magic to deal damage or use an enchanted weapon. I must admit, I miss stuff like that. Skyrim has a bit of variety with things like trolls and vampires taking more damage from fire, for example, but I'd love to see some more of that stuff brought back. Overall, I just think that Skyrim's damage system could be improved in a lot of ways, leading to more diversity in fun playstyles and build setups. Designing some sort of glass cannon build around scoring lots of critical hits, or a tower star sign warrior who wins through breaking bones and maiming his opponents would be really cool. The fourth thing on this list actually relates to something I've talked about before in one of our videos about things we don't want in Elder Scrolls 6, specifically a full-scale return of the Dwemer to Tamriel, the Deep Elves. I think this would spoil the mystery of the Dwemer, which is one of the things that make this race so fascinating. It could also end up such a significant occurrence that it takes up heaps of the game's focus, which would be better used for exploring things like what happens with the Thalmor and other factions with their various geopolitical rivalries around the continent. However, if the Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be set in Hammerfell or Hammerfell and High Rock all in one game, then I would love to dive deep into learning more about the Dwemer who traveled west from Resdayn long ago, none other than the elusive Rorcan clan. I believe it's possible to learn more about the Dwemer without having them return or ruining the mystery surrounding the specifics of their disappearance and all the inner workings of their society and tools. Quite some time ago, I came up with a good concept that works well with any area of Elder Scrolls lore where mystery is quite important. In order to reveal the answer to a question, you must leave two questions in its place. In Elder Scrolls 6, exploring more about Clan Rorken by diving into their ruins and seeing what still lies within in the 4th era, or whenever the next title is set, would be incredibly satisfying. In fact, I've even put forth the idea that you could maybe meet a living Dwemer who, unlike Yagrum Bagan, is not afflicted by disease and looks exactly like a Dwemer. Perhaps he was out exploring some realm of Oblivion when the race disappeared, and therefore his capacity to spoil that mystery is completely ruined. He may also be able to tell you things about Dwemer society, but like any NPC, his dialogue would only focus on a few questions, and he could speak in a way that doesn't reveal too much. He also wouldn't know everything about his race just because he is a Dwemer. Another way to explore without revealing too much could be for the player to end up touching a mysterious shrine with a soul gem fixed in it deep in a Dwemer ruin. Touching it, you fall to your knees and receive a vision where you live through the eyes of a Dwemer long ago, experiencing their memories. You get to see a slither of functioning Dwemer society, one room in fact, and overhear conversations between characters. You'll never get to explore beyond the room you're in, nor ask anyone what the Dawn Larynx invention that someone mysteriously mentioned actually is. You'll see some cool machinery and unique automatons floating near the roof fixing pipes, but never know how they quite work. This gives the player more clarity on the Dwemer, such as what they look like, and perhaps you also overhear some events about the Rorken clan, but what you experience only leaves you wanting to know more. Clan Rorken left about 300 years before the disappearance of the Dwemer from Tamriel, which leaves them with plenty of time to diverge culturally somewhat from the other Dwemer we've explored in Morrowind and Skyrim. That's a long time for perspectives to change, for distinct new sets of weapons and armor to be made, and slightly different architectural styles, and perhaps even some new deadly traps. More importantly, it's also a lot of time for intelligent Dwemer individuals to come up with their own unique inventions, unheard of by clans living elsewhere. Clan Rorken's capital was called Volenfell, which is where Volendrung, the artifact now given to players by Malakath, was said to have literally fallen after it was thrown through the skies back in the First Era. Gaining insight into how embellished these claims are would be interesting, as would learning more about Spellbreaker, another unique Clan Rorken artifact with significance throughout the Elder Scrolls series. Perhaps the story of Volendrung is entirely poetic, otherwise it might have to be explained, as one text in the Elder Scrolls Online jests, as a flying engine using lost Dwemer mechanics. The Elder Scrolls Online actually does explore Dwemer ruins in Hammerfell somewhat, and I think it was the perfect teaser for what could be uncovered in a true single-player game experience. The names of unique artifacts located within Volenfell, like the Guardian's Eye, can't help but grab my attention. Clan Rorken has ruins spread all around the place, even on Stros Makai, which had particularly alien, fascinating vibes in the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard. Overall, I just really want to dive into Clan Rorken and learn more about these Dwemer, but of course without it being the main focus of the game, or spoiling too much of the mystery surrounding this ancient race. The fifth and final thing on this list that we'd enjoy seeing in the Elder Scrolls 6 is actually finding out more about the Daedric Prince of Perfect Order, Jiggalag. Like many of the ideas discussed in this video, this one isn't some sort of do-or-die desire, and a while ago if you asked us if we'd want a Jiggalag quest, there's a good chance we wouldn't really mind either way. However, after our Jiggalag podcast not too long ago, as well as really thinking about how long it's going to be until we get an Elder Scrolls 6, and how long it took between Skyrim and then, and how long it will take to ever get an Elder Scrolls 7, we think it would be really cool to gain some more insight into this mysterious prince while we can. Spoiler warning ahead for the Oblivion Shivering Isles DLC. So at the end of the DLC, the player defeats Jiggalag and actually ends up taking the place of the mad god himself, Sheogorath. Jiggalag, who was once cursed to become mad and take on the form of Sheogorath, only to transform back into Jiggalag to destroy his realm and have to start all over again at the end of each era, was essentially decoupled from Sheogorath and the curse was broken. Jiggalag is now said to be roaming the seas of Oblivion once more. Depending on who you ask, Jiglag was either turned insane by the other Daedric princes who saw his perfect order spreading across Oblivion to be a threat, or he was the only true Daedra who could realize his true chaotic nature and was driven mad by this knowledge. Perhaps as a Prince of Order, he realized how contradictory his very being was. Whatever truly doomed Jiglag to become the madman Sheogorath is hard to know. However, we could learn more about what happened through hints dropped in dialogue while actually talking to him. It would be interesting to hear what he remembers of the earlier times before he was cursed, and also to learn about what he's been doing since he was freed from his curse. Now, I don't want Jiglag to play a main role in the events of The Elder Scrolls 6. The last thing I want is for Hammerfell or High Rock to be covered in crystalline obelisks and Knights of Order, but if there was some sort of shrine to Jiglag hidden somewhere with a quest available to complete, as is the case in Skyrim with various Daedra, I think that would be really neat. The player could get a sweet artifact such as Shadowrend, or even end up with a brand new artifact from this Daedric prince we know so little about. As for the quest itself, maybe you're sent to track down a manic court wizard who has been acting quite suspiciously for a while before killing an advisor and fleeing. You search for clues in his room in the castle and find he has been secretly worshipping a lost Daedric prince, hoping to bring his influence into Mundus to bring order to an increasingly chaotic land. After some investigation, you end up tracking him deep underground, and you find a hidden shrine to Jiglag at the lowest point in this cavern. There you find the court wizard undergoing some sort of magical transformation. He has been so consumed by Jiglag's explanations, his logical deduction, and his masterful rationalization that he has basically given up the notion that his free will exists. He transforms into a powerful Knight of Order and begins to attack you. This particularly strong Knight of Order could even possess Jiglag's sword, given to him as a gift to wield in his name. After defeating the wizard-turned knight, you take the sword for yourself and bring the news of the battle and newly discovered shrine back to the king. I'd also hope if this sword is the reward, that its effects are made far cooler than they used to be. It could have a shock damage effect combined with something more unique on top, like a tiny chance of turning those it strikes into allied knights or priests of order when their health falls below the halfway point, or it could simply have a shock enchantment, but it can be used to summon 2 Knights of Order once per day to help you. I don't really mind how Bethesda does the weapon or quest itself exactly, so long as it's unique, lore-friendly, and reveals more about what Jiglag's current motives are. It would just be really cool to learn more about Jiglag and what he's been doing, considering he's been missing from the Elder Scrolls timeline for such a long time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of the episode of 5 things we want in The Elder Scrolls 6. It's been a big one, and if you've watched it the whole way, I want to say I'm super grateful for all of your support. All 3 of us here at FudgeMuppet really appreciate it, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe and hit that bell notification button if you want to get more content like this all the time. Thank you again so much for watching. We really appreciate all of your support in the comments and on social media, and if you want to share any other ideas you want to talk about, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and don't forget to tell me why I need to make a part 13. I hope your reasons are as well thought out as they were for this video. Social media links are below with a link to our Patreon and merch if you're interested in supporting the channel and getting a sensational FudgeMuppet mask shirt. My name is Michael, thanks again for tuning in, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.